Good evening. How's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Friday night. It is the Earthmaster out here. July 11th, 2025. 7/11/2025, 10:30 p.m. That's California time here. Latest activity shows on the earthquake 3D globe here. Looks like a 4.0 earthquake across, looks like up there around the Burma area, Myanmar region. Also some earthquake activity showing up there in Alaska with a 1.9. Our primary focus right now is along the Southern California area in the San Andreas Fault. Got a swarm of activity out here recently, including a newer movement quake here. This earthquake at 2.3 along the Parkfield segment of the San Andreas Fault. Actually, it looks like it's just north there along the creeping section. Parkfield segment a little bit further south here. Not that far south, though. We're watching that closely because it is coming up here upon a time when we average out reoccurrence intervals of large earthquakes out here across the southern, or at least across this area, the Parkfield segment of the San Andreas Fault, which happens every 20 to 22 years. And our last one was back in 2004. So here we are, 2025. I'd say we're well into the future. So there's been quite a bit of strain built up here along the Parkfield segment of the San Andreas Fault. Also a little bit of segment or earthquake activity down here across the southern area of the San Andreas Fault with a 1.9 earlier this morning. We do have a decent swarm of earthquake activity out here across Southern California right now. That includes tonight as we speak. Some movement stirring up here across the Elsinore Fault. A swarm of activity in between these faults here. That's the San Jacinto Fault Zone and the Elsinore Fault. Also here across the southern end of the Salton Sea area. Now, man, I tell you what, a lot of people here on the last couple of my videos have said nothing's gonna happen. This is very common. I guarantee you those people right there are going to be eating their words when it comes to earthquake activity out here in Southern California, okay? Whether it's tonight or in the next 10 or so years, those naysayers, I tell you what, they're a handle. I got quite a few viewers out here on my channel that say, "Oh, you're always saying this. This is nothing new. We're always seeing earthquake activity out here. There's nothing that's gonna happen." I tell you what. Oh, if they were only to know what's gonna happen out here, let me tell you. So I want to pinpoint some earthquake activity out here for you naysayers, okay? Because it doesn't matter if it's today or tomorrow. You guys are always going to say it's not happening, right? That's your demeanor, and we know about you people. So it's best to move on and not even discuss you people. This is a map here of California, obviously, that shows the last time a major earthquake struck out here along the San Andreas Fault. Okay, think about this: the regular reoccurrence interval along the San Andreas Fault here across any segment runs about 140 to 160 years. So take that into your brain and compute this. The last time we've seen a major rupture out there across the extreme southern end of the San Andreas Fault has been over 300 years. That's double 160. The 1857 earthquakes, long before many of you were born, and long before many of your parents were born, right? We built up skyscrapers out here, mansions, acres and acres of wealth. 1857, an M7.9 struck out here along the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. It did not take the entirety out here of the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. Otherwise, that would create an 8.1. But that's the last time a decent-sized rupture out there across the southern branch took place. 213 years ago. That's well beyond the 140 and 160 years interval. There was an earthquake up here as well that struck the central segment. That was 168 years ago. The 1906 earthquake ruptured an entire length here from about the creeping segment northward for the big old 7.9 earthquake there, 1906 earthquake, 119 years ago. It's never going to happen, right? Can you picture that? The naysayers saying it's never going to happen out here. You guys have been saying that forever. Kind of reminds me of the days of Noah. Oh, it's never going to rain. And outside of the religion aspect of things here, we live along a major plate boundary out here called the San Andreas Fault. And think about this here. I want to show you guys real quick how big this plate is. The North American plate here in the brown, look at that. And the Pacific plate here in the kind of yellowish color. These two sections right here interact with one another. So I wish I could kind of slap some sense into you guys out there that this is going to happen. It will happen. The question is of time, right? The naysayers, I could block every single one of them, but I choose not to because I want them to have a voice out here. I'm a very First Amendment type of guy. So if they want to speak what they think is happening out here, then so be it. But when it comes to the science out here, the science tells us here that we are overdue for a large earthquake out here along the plate boundary in its entirety, from the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault northward into the northern segment here of the San Andreas Fault. I don't think we're overdue here for the northern segment because it's only been 119 years since the 7.9 earthquake back in 1906. But you never know, right? There may be enough strain built up out there for at least a 7 or a mid-7. But, take into account these numbers here. They may not mean anything for the folks that don't consider science into their common sense out here. But I want to show you guys what's going on out here, okay? We got a decent earthquake swarm out there across Southern California right now. And it's stirring up big time out there across the Brawley seismic zone. Now, this is not the only area. If this was the only area, I'd be like, okay, maybe this is just some extensional boundary earthquake activity. Because it is an extensional boundary. This is where this is kind of spreading apart out here between the Pacific and the North American plate. That's why you get volcanoes out here across the Salton Sea. There's the Salton Buttes and some volcano activity out here. So this is spreading apart. But when you take into account here, earthquake swarms up north, earthquake swarms over here to the west, and of course the extensional boundary, what do you think's happening to this fault system here that has not seen any major release in pressure in over 300 years down there across that black segment? Are we to ignore that and just say, well, nothing's going to happen? You always say that. It's crazy, man. I read every single comment out here, and sometimes it drives me crazy because I want to say something, but I don't want to because I want to keep it civilized. I try to keep the facts at hand. I try to keep the scientific data at hand here. But you can always have the naysayers saying that, oh, nothing happens in San Diego. You're never going to get robbed, right? Or vice versa up here in Los Angeles. There's always someone with an opinion. But the facts and the data, the scientific data, do not lie. They don't lie. So eventually, the naysayers will probably get swallowed up, and they will be complacent when it comes to the next big earthquake activity out here. Got to watch that closely here. So look at this specifically in Southern California in the last 24 hours, folks. 113 earthquakes across Southern California. That's a big number. That is a big number specifically just for this area around the San Andreas Fault and the Salton Sea area. The largest earthquake of 4.3. That's a decent number. 3.4, 3.1, 2.4. There's a swarm of activity down here. That means extensional boundary here. Expect further strain upstream along the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault. Right now, there's nothing going on here specifically on that plate boundary, but I guarantee you, 300 years. 300 years, okay? That's a lot of time. That's a lot of time, folks. Look at all the earthquake activity around this area. Look at all, oh my gosh. Look at all these earthquakes off the San Jacinto Fault Zone, in between the Elsinore Fault, in between the San Andreas Fault. Look at that. That is unusual. And I know we have a lot of people here saying, oh, we're always having earthquake swarms down here. It's nothing new. Southern California. Welcome to Southern California. Come on, give me a break, folks. Really? You guys that think you know it all will be the ones that succumb here to a large earthquake. I don't want it, but you have to realize the facts out here. That this area is well overdue. And to ignore the scientific facts out here that we're seeing elevated earthquake activity out here is stupid. I'm sorry to use that word, but it's stupid. You have to take into account the scientific data. 300 years. A lot of earthquake activity out here, folks. Watch that very closely. But it's not, when I put into the respect here of earthquake activity locally, you have to account for elevated earthquake activity here in the last couple days or so. Okay, so I wish I could pull up just a couple days there of 2.5, but we have seen here not only a decent earthquake swarm here around the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, but areas upstream along the San Andreas Fault. The Parkfield segment, looks like we got, that's a 2.3 along the Parkfield segment there. Also activity down south there. Let me bring up the last 7 days here. Look at this cluster here along the creeping segment. Some getting very close here along the Parkfield segment. Some even within the Parkfield, well, that's south of the Parkfield segment range. A little swarm here along the Bend area of the San Andreas Fault. You know, this I wish I could explain to people that don't understand size range. When it comes to the size of the plate boundary out here. A lot of people think that earthquake activity in Northern California or in San Francisco area does not affect areas downstream here, but this is just a simple layout of the big plates that we're riding our life on, right? We're living our best life. I'm not really fond of that, to be honest. We're living our best life. That's very subjective. The Pacific plate, the North American plate here, it's always on the move, always on the crunch. And us little ants out here, right? Because that's all we are. We're just a couple ants out here along the plate boundary. They're always building up strain out here. So when we see elevated earthquake activity out here across a certain section of the plate boundary, working its way down the plate boundary here that has not seen any major earthquake rupture in quite a long time, well, we have to take into account here that this could be a probability that we're looking at something soon for earthquake activity out here. We get so complacent, Let me show you guys here real quick, satellite view. Check out the satellite view of Sacramento. You know how many people live there in Sacramento? A lot of people. You know how many people live there in San Francisco? A lot of people, a lot of ants out here. You know what that means to the plate boundaries? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Millions of people live out here in the California area. Millions of ants as well. When things move and they adjust, they are not going to account for human population out here. I guarantee you. These time frames out here are well above the average number of years that take place here between major ruptures along the San Andreas Fault. We're at an extreme level where we're well above that average number, where things could take place at any given day. Doesn't matter, if you're living here in Los Angeles or along a cabin up in the mountains, that doesn't mean anything. The matter is that a lot of time has passed out here between this earthquake activity, between the plate boundaries. This cannot go along any longer. I don't think we're going to see much longer here before we see some large earthquake activity out here, because eventually these plates need to adjust. That's just the facts there. And they're kind of pointing towards a time frame where we're living right now. So be on guard, folks. I try not to fearmonger, but I try to put in scientific data out here. The facts. And the facts don't lie. Southern California. Watch that closely there tonight. Bay Area, pretty quiet. Nothing going on here. Northern California, a handful of earthquakes out here. But mainly, let's see what we got here. A couple last night, a couple this evening as well. Nothing major going on there, but, it's a toss-up right now. We're getting that major teeter-totter effect between the Western Pacific here with a huge swarm there around Japan, and now swarming out there across the West Coast, the Eastern Pacific. So this is a time here to watch this very closely. I've seen this numerous times here. In fact, the last time was back in 2011. We had decent swarming out here in California along the West Coast, elevated tremor, Cascadia earthquake activity, as far as crustal quakes go, and then a bunch of swarming out here across Japan, and then all of a sudden a big old 9-pointer struck out here along the Japan Trench. And then we've seen a relief of pressure out there across the Eastern Pacific. We're in that very similar time period here between the West Coast here and, the eastern coast of Japan. Something could happen at any given time right now. Let's go ahead and check out the Japan Meteorological Agency, where we've had, obviously a number of earthquakes out there in the last couple weeks, with at times 10 to 20 earthquakes per hour. So this is the last, this is the current time period there at 9:42, 3.1. Got a number of earthquakes there across the 8 o'clock hour, 7 o'clock hour as well. I don't see any major swarming going on out there across the Japan area for now. But watch that closely. It's been bouncing back and forth here between Japan and the West Coast there recently. There's one of the latest earthquakes there, 5.0, along that subduction zone, just off the Nankai Trough there. Look how many earthquakes have struck here. Hello, 112 earthquakes with no main magnitude. It does not take, a rocket scientist to discover what's going on out here. We got some big-time earthquake activity potential that's about ready to take place. It has not happened yet, but it's very close. That could either be the Nankai Trough or this area down south here across Taiwan. Right? Look at that. Hello. A 5.6 does not trigger 112 earthquakes. Okay? Think about that. Use a little bit of common sense here, okay? So something major is brewing out here. We got large-scale potential across the Nankai Trough in this area down south, also the Izu Trench. But at the same time, when you figure in the teeter-totter effect here between the Western Pacific and the Eastern Pacific, which one's going to pop? I mentioned here back in 2011, but also in 2021, we had a similar event where things were rocking and rolling out here across the Western Pacific, Eastern Pacific, and then all of a sudden it broke here in the middle, up north and down south. with an 8.1 up here in Alaska, and also an 8-pointer down there across the Kermadec Trench. So things are, they're heightened right now. We have to pay attention to these little areas that are showing big time swarms. California right now, Japan, not so much up in Alaska. We do have an earthquake down there across the Kermadec Trench right now with a 5.3. That came in here within the last hour. But we got to watch this, folks. Southern California is rocking and rolling, and it's an area to watch right now because it has promising movement. When was your grandma born? When was your grandfather born? How old are they? What about your great grandpa or your great grandma? Think of how much generations have passed since we've been thriving out here, right? Working our 8 to 12 or 12-hour days, or 8-hour days. It doesn't matter what you're doing out here, but so much time has passed out here that we've been very complacent as a human civilization here that we forget because of naysayers. Oh, nothing's gonna happen. 7.9, 8.1 earthquake out here. Is that what you guys are ready for? Are you guys ready for an 8.1 earthquake? Are you guys ready to rock and roll? Are you guys ready for no electricity, no internet, no power, no gas stations working? Are you guys really ready for that? Think about that. Think about the population that's needed out here. I worry about that because there's so much innocent life out here. I don't want to see loss of innocent life because of the damaging potential out here. But we live along a major hazard out here. 8.1 earthquake out here across San Andreas Fault will be big time damage. Look at that population density. Think about the kids and stuff like that out here. It's not good. You guys really got to think about earthquake plan along the West Coast out here right now. I live here in Northern California, just outside of Chico, a ways away from the plate boundary. I guarantee you, though, we'll feel some shaking with a Cascadia more so than an 8.1 down here. But I feel for the folks down there. I really do. I have a lot of viewers down there, a lot of decent, good people. And I really worry about it, folks. I really do. Let's go ahead and check outside the area right now. We got Mount Rainier out here blasting a bunch of earthquake activity. It's just nonstop. A lot of movement out here. Almost 500 earthquakes. Hello, 500 earthquakes in Mount Rainier. That's an unprecedented earthquake amount there in the last it's been several days or so. Wow. All right, so let's go ahead and see what we got here from the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network for the Mount Rainier area. Okay, look at that. Oh my gosh, 485 recorded earthquakes up at the summit area. Seismograph station here last couple hours still shows earthquake activity. Look at that. See all those little small spikes. The previous day, oops, let me go back one more time. Hello, McFly. There we go. Shows, wow, some of those look like they're up around the 2 range. Interesting there. Let's see what we got there for the largest earthquake activity here in the last 24 hours, because some of that looks a little bit larger. Yeah, there's oh my goodness, there's a 2.4. So that was today. Earlier this afternoon, that's a decent size signature, and that would make it the largest earthquake so far in this series of 400 or 500 earthquakes or so. But if you think about all these number of earthquakes that are occurring within these lines, watch this arrow right here. Okay, look at these little earthquakes there, the red, the blue, the red. We're talking about hundreds of earthquakes within the last 24 hours, at least on this map here. So we're probably well above 1,500 earthquakes or so in the last week that has been unaccounted for earthquake activity. And the USGS has stated themselves that they are not, pinpointing every single earthquake activity out here. They're just pinpointing the ones that they can locate and determine the magnitude, the depth, and the location of that earthquake. But that's the largest earthquake there, 2.4 earthquake in this series of earthquakes out here. If you go back to the last 30 days, there you go. We've had 2.3s there a couple days ago. 2.4 the largest. Negative 1.6, a little bit deeper. Do I need to take a drive out here? Do I really need to take a drive out here? Because I will. I'm not even joking. I will hop in my truck tonight and drive down there, or drive up there, if I think this thing is getting ready to erupt. I don't see any signs of lengthy seismograph readings out here that would tell me that it's magmatic in terms of magma coming up. That's a decent earthquake. And earthquake activity is continuing to this hour. If you look here on the next map, as you can see some of these smaller spikes out there. So, yeah, trust me, I have no doubt jumping in my truck tonight, and I will drive up there all night if I think this thing is ready to show some signs of eruption. Not even joking. And I'll take you guys along with me. I've done it before. I've gone down to Southern California there when there was a decent earthquake swarm. Let me check out here the GPS stations here real quick. Stand by. So we got one GPS station here. Excuse me. This goes up to the time period of today. A little bit of uptick here, but nothing out of the extraordinary here. This is in meters. Look at this meter section. This is 0. This is 0.005 meters. This is 0.01 meters. This is a rinky-dink uplift at all. But this is nothing new that hasn't happened here since 2020. It's been kind of up and down, but this is, again, really rinky-dink. I guess that's a word to use here, because there's nothing that tells me that this is going up. If I were to see this go off the chart here, oh man, I would be on my way up there to Mount Rainier. But right now, this is all hydrothermal fluids and interaction with the magma chamber below. Nothing that tells me here that this is turning into an eruption. This is at 30% molten material down into the magma chamber. They have already announced that. So this is not anything in terms of eruption activity right now. I'm really more concerned with Southern California, to be honest. They got a lot of earthquake activity in numerous areas around the plate boundary here, and it's man, the stress is showing out here. Let me check out the tremor map this evening, which shows it's a decent amount, a really decent amount up here of 290 epicenters of tremor. That's across the deeper areas of the Cascadia subduction zone, including some due west of the Mount Rainier area. Interesting. So obviously you got to remember here, as the Juan de Fuca plate subducts further underneath this area of the North American plate, you get into the mantle, deeper areas where the land melts, right? So this Juan de Fuca plate is going to melt, recycle itself eventually up through the volcanoes there across the Cascades. But right now, there's nothing indicative there that's telling us that we're going to see any volcanic activity anytime soon. It's just some hydrothermal activity there across the Mount Rainier area. But that's a decent amount, definitely a decent amount of uptick there, 290. So that means the Cascadia subduction zone is on the move there. A little bit of earthquake activity south of Yellowstone as well, 2.8. Hello, what's going on out there with the North American plate? Let's go ahead and check this out here across the Yellowstone overview here real quick. 2.8. I'm guessing that's going to be this earthquake right here. It did show up there across the Moose Creek, Idaho station, and also Pitchstone Plateau. That's well outside the Yellowstone caldera area. But an interesting earthquake nonetheless. It looks like it's occurring on the, let's see which fault system that is, Grand Valley Fault. Either way, a lot of earthquake activity here in the last couple months across the West Coast. That's very good indicator of strain. The interaction between the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate. So when you see elevated earthquake activity in stream or intraplate here, that means to watch the plate boundary. Strain builds up along the plate boundary to include these areas inland. Oil fields to Texas, rock and rolling. Yes, I heard you. I heard you on the Kansas earthquakes. I caught your comment there. I didn't reply to you, but I definitely seen your comment there. I try to reply to everyone that comments on my videos. I really try to, but sometimes it's hard. It's really hard. When you got hundreds of comments. I'm only one guy. Yes, we had Kansas earthquakes out here today. This is not any big deal. It's out there in the fields there of Kansas off of Hill City. This is outside of any major hazard zone. In fact, it's in a very minimal area of Kansas. But we have seen a number of earthquakes out here. So there may be some undiscovered faults out here across Kansas area that, obviously have not been discovered. But it just goes to show you the increasing pressure gradients out here across the North American Plate. But we'll watch that. I don't think there's any major concern out there, but we're definitely seeing the stress signs out there across the beautiful, absolutely beautiful state of Kansas right now. One earthquake out there across the New Madrid seismic zone. Let's take a look here at the rest of the country. I know there's a lot going on out here across the West Coast, and I think it's notable to pay attention to the elevated activity as well, because all this increasing pressure is showing, and there's a lot at stake out there that could produce some large earthquake activity. One of the larger earthquakes there across the Kermadec Islands there, 5.3. One of the latest quakes, though, 4.3. So look at this. 5.3, literally. We're looking at just minutes later some adjustment up there across Port Moresby area, Papua New Guinea area. So the strain is increasing between these two points out here. This area has been absolutely quiet here in the last few days. That could be very concerning here because we're building stress, building pressure. When the pressure increases out here, that transfer occurs up to the northwest. That's the general plate stress movement out here. Here's the Tonga Trench. No see arrows here, the Pacific Plate moving off to the northwest here. That's a general strain area. So when things skip over this area, well, we're looking at these little weak areas around Papua New Guinea area that are building up some strain, that are showing earthquake signs. So watch this quiet zone. That includes Vanuatu and areas around the Solomon Islands. A couple earthquakes up there around the Japan Trench. That looks like 4.2, 4.3 this morning and this afternoon. I showed you guys last night a lot of earthquake activity kicking up. Some this morning around Japan. This area around the Nankai Trough is still underneath an earthquake watch because of the elevated earthquake activity here in the last few days. We've seen a huge swarm of a bunch of earthquakes, and I showed you guys there are well over 100 earthquakes with no major magnitude quake. So that tells me right there that things are building out there across the Nankai Trough. So far, we have yet to see any mega movement, but I tell you what. Oh, look at this. Oh, man. Did this just pop up, or is this a newer activity event here? or older activity. Yeah, so yeah, that's the older one I was talking about. I thought it was something new coming in between the middle point, but it's not. Alaska, some minimal activity. I'm not really worried about Hawaii right now. That just got through with an eruption here a couple days ago. Middle America Trench has calmed down. Guatemala on the clear for now. South America, very common, typical earthquake activity. The Mediterranean, a couple earthquakes out there. Nothing big going on there for now. Main focus, as I stated here, across Japan, the Kuril-Kamchatka into the Japan Trench, the quiet zones back here across Papua New Guinea eastward, and of course the west coast, California. So just be on guard. A current look here at the live seismograph stations. One earthquake there across Petrolia. The USGS normally does not show the smaller earthquake activity out there. It's a very small earthquake, probably of a 1 magnitude range, but they do not cover this. They do not. If you look here, they never cover the one. Well, looks like maybe a couple, but there's an earthquake up here. I could check for the next couple hours, and they won't show that. But it's hit and miss. Nothing big going on there for Northern California for now. Again, I think the main focus that we need to watch here, when you put these numbers here together, and the amount of time that you and me, our grandparents and our parents have experienced out here, is that there's been a lot of time that has passed between a major rupture along this plate boundary that we're living on. That is what you have to take into account there. Space weather activity, a little C flare, actually a little bit of M flare activity, it looks like, up into the M. Where did we go? An M 1.4? Looks like an M 1.4 range. Nothing major. But let's see where that's coming from. Looks like this sunspot area up here on the northern hemisphere of the sun. Newer sunspot here, another over here. I tell you what, guys, we're getting active out there across the sun right now. So go ahead and take a look here at the magnetogram image. Look at this sunspot popping up out of the blue, looking all fancy. Also this area down here, a little bit of complexity. We got a number of sunspots out here that are, they're kind of popping up, saying, "Hello, look at me, look what I can do." I don't think we're seeing anything of any major X flare potential, but we do have some C and M flare potential from a number of these sunspots out here. I would definitely keep an eye on this one over here and this one. That's kind of popped up there out of the blue. That's 4138, 4136. We do have a decent 50% chance there for some M flare activity and a 5% chance there for some X flare activity. Nothing major for the auroras. I know they have a G1 class storm up here, and that is due primarily to I think it's due to high-speed solar wind stream, but I'm going to forecast this right now. I'm not really expecting much at all from this. This is a southward pointing tilt from this high-speed solar wind stream due to it's the Earth-Sun plane right out here, right? This is well south of the area of our planet, so I'm kind of calling that right now. I don't see anything, but they're issuing a G1 class storm potentially. I just don't see it. Let's see what else we got here, folks. That's an interesting earthquake up there across Wyoming on that plate boundary, or that fault system there. I think we can agree here from north to south that we've seen a lot of earthquake stress signs out here across the plate boundary. We have to pay attention to that. But no one, I can't predict it. No one can predict that there's going to be, a 7.9 out there across the San Andreas Fault tomorrow or in the next 100 years. No one absolutely knows. All I know is that I have to look at the data. I have to look at the scientific facts. I have to look at the time that has passed. And I have to look at what's going on right now and where it's occurring. And right now, my primary focus is out there across the San Andreas Fault. It's definitely showing some signs out here that it could be getting ready to produce a large earthquake. And we need to be prepared. We don't need to be complacent and stating, it just goes to show you I read every comment, every single comment, including the negatives. I read every single negative comment out there. I don't always reply to them, but to state that you're wrong, it's never going to happen. Hello, where are you living at? If it's never going to happen, why did we have historical events out there? Okay, think about that for a moment, okay? Do not be complacent. Complacency becomes a statistic in your life. Do not become a statistic, okay? Make sure you're prepared for some earthquake activity out here because it could happen at any given time, folks. Let's focus on the preparedness rather than the negativity of you're wrong. It's never going to happen. It almost sounds like my neighbor a couple years ago when I kind of told her dog was barking all the time. You're wrong. It never barks. Well, I proved her wrong in court. All right. Anyway, right? We all know about our neighbors and our barking dogs, right? Thank God for video cameras. The video camera is your First Amendment right there. And boy, did it prove her wrong in court. Keep an eye there on Southern California. That's a huge cluster of 130 earthquakes down here in the last 24 hours. Okay, hello. The last 30 days, okay, not to scare anyone, but we've seen over 1,500 earthquakes out here, concentrated around the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. Be prepared and don't be stupid. Make sure you have a plan and focus on what you need to do pending a large earthquake. Make sure you also download. I want to show you guys here real quick. Download the MyShake alert system, okay? I'm going to show you guys real quick here. It's called MyShake. It's an early alert notification system that gets sent out on your phone from an agency, right? You have to allow them to track your location. Okay, if you don't want to do that, then okay. But for those of you that want to be safe and want to provide your location for safety, MyShake early alert notification system. I've been woken up many times 20 seconds prior to shaking in the middle of the night listening to this.
Earthquake. Drop, cover, hold on, shaking expected. Earthquake. Drop, cover, hold on, shaking expected.
I heard that prior to the 7.1 in Northern California there last year, and also some earthquake activity in Nevada. That app gave me a 20-second notification before I felt shaking out here to my location. That is a must. It's not a sales. This doesn't cost anything. It's free. It's not spam. It's something that you need to have out here across the West Coast. It's called MyShake. Early alert notification system for Android, iPhone, whatever you're using out there. It's a must app out here across the West Coast. Okay, so even if you have your phone on silent, oh my gosh, it's gone off a number of times, and a couple times I didn't feel it, but I appreciated it, because it was an earthquake that was located within my area that I needed to be aware of. So I want everyone, to be aware. Real quick shout out here to my viewers and especially my subscribers out here. We have 91 members right now as of right now. It's something we do every single month here around the 20th of the month. We give away prizes here to our members. Right? Look how many members. 91. Our newest member there, Victor Rangel, it looks like. Our longest term member, Robert Hello, Robert Kozowski. We appreciate every single member in between now and then. Been over 3.5 years there since we've been giving away prizes there to our members. We'll do it again here on the 20th of July. We give away cash prizes or membership cards or whatever you wish, whether it's Earthmaster merchandise or geology mining kits. Ask Hurricane Heather. She received a beautiful, I think it's a 13-piece geology mining kit. If you're a rock hound like me, that's something you got to be into. So it's our way of pretty much giving back here to the community and our show of appreciation. I did not mean to make this a 45-minute video there, folks, but I do appreciate it. Everyone watching out here. We got 45 viewers right now. John Jerome, Oceanside, thanks for checking in. Just be prepared. You guys, 45 viewers, but I get thousands of views here on my videos. But for the live streamers out here, you guys are watching that ahead of time. There we go. You guys just got to be prepared, right? Make sure you got plenty of food, your documents stored if you need to, water, fuel. I always keep fuel on hand here, but you got to be very cautious with the fuel handling. You don't want to keep 20 or 25 gallons of gas next to an area that could rupture and spark, in eruption. So make sure that's in some type of containment. But I always like to keep 25 to 35 gallons of fuel on hand, because I guarantee you, folks, when the big one hits out here, you're not going to be able to pull up to a gas station and fill up your car. Let alone the roads are going to be demolished out here. Food. I am a canned food whore. I'm not even joking. I love canned foods, and it's something I always accumulate, whether it's seafood, beef stew, oysters. Missy Mimi's here is always, she's always wondering, why are you ordering this? Why? But it's something I hold on to. And even though the earthquake activity may not happen in the last couple months, I accumulate it and I also eat it at the same time. I love seafood. Oysters in the can. I know it may sound bad, but I love oysters. So yeah, you got to make sure you're prepared, folks, because we live day to day, right? We go to our 9 to 5 or our 12 to 12, whatever your schedule is. We have to make sure that we're prepared, because we don't want to become a statistic out here. Don't become it. Many people are going to be left, empty-handed out here. There's a big earthquake. What's going on? What do I do? How come I don't have any food? Who's going to provide me with fuel? Think about this, folks. And remember, look at these time periods here. The average intervals here on the San Andreas Fault for a large rupture is 140 to 160 years. Look at these three numbers. That's almost double on the south. I can't be any more serious than what's going on out here right now. And the signs are showing. I think that 6.9 and the 7.1 back there in 2019 there on the Ridgecrest area is some kind of foreshocks out here to something much bigger that's about ready to take place. The San Andreas Fault, folks. Probably not anything like the movies are showing out there, but it's definitely going to be bad when things hit. So be prepared, folks. Seismograph stations out there, they're offline, but they do come on, after about 30 seconds or so. Stay safe. Be prepared, folks. We'll see you guys out here tomorrow. Yeah, it's Saturday, right? Saturday update. After, obviously, a few hours of sleep. Have a good one.